macro name or the prototype. If I go one by one, this is macro is a macro name or the prototype. Next is the macro body. Okay, the instructions which you want to abbreviate. Then M end represents the macro end. Okay, and how to call the macro is given here. You can see the macro name is INCR. So INCR and argument, okay, is replaced by now data1. That also I can do. Okay, so instead of data1 2 3, what I did is I have used this ampersand arg. Okay, and while calling the particular macro I have used my incr data1. Okay, next is incr data2. If third time the same sequence is appearing, then I can call incr data3. Likewise, okay, this happens. Now what is expanded code and what is macro expansion, that we need to see. Okay, so what we say is the macro sudo of is the first line of the definition and identifies the following line as the macro instructions name. Okay, following the name line, okay, we had seen the sequence of the instructions which is closed by the m end. Okay, now once the macro has been defined, the what you can say, the macro name is the operation mnemonic in an assembly program, and it is equivalent to use of the corresponding what you can say instruction sequence. Okay, so I told you how this instruction sequence is being what you can say repeated. Now whatever process we did, that is the process of replacement, okay, of the repeated code by the macros, okay, is called as the expanding the macros, okay, or expansion of the macro. Now if you notice here, the macro definition itself does not appear in the expanded source code. Okay, so what is expanded source code, that we need to see. Okay, look at this. So these ovals, which ovals, the purple color ovals which I have shown is called as the expanded code. Okay, so the first expanded code is this one, A1 data 1, A2 data 1, A3 data 1. Okay, this is the expanded code of the macro INCR data 1. Second oval is the expanded code of INCR data 2. Okay, so that is what, A1 data 2, A2 data 2, A3 data 2, or whatever are the values, data 1 2 3. Likewise, so third time when I got, let us say, INCR data 3, okay, so I may get one more expanded code. Okay, so what we said is the process of the replacement of the macros by the expansion of by the sequence of the instructions is called as the expansion of the macros. Okay, and you as I said, you might have observed that the name
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
I think power is off.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So we'll move ahead with the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is how then what you can say a macro is being defined. Okay. Next, moving to
Ma'am,
the
screen
macro
is not visible.
Ma'am,
screen.
screen is not visible.
Okay, thank you. I'll share this once again. Recording is okay.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Is it now?
Yeah, visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
It is.
Okay, so this is actually the sample example of macro expansion. You can see, okay, the repeated code, and on the left hand side you got a macro. So whenever there is a repeated code, you instead of writing all these things simply write INCR. Okay, so with this particular thing then we'll move ahead. So what is said as there are three types of parameters that can be used in the what you can say macro code, and I'll tell you that. So the first one is the positional kind of parameter, second is a keyword parameter, then next is mixed parameter, and last one is the default value. Okay, so where all these things can appear, you have to understand that, okay, they can appear in the macro instructions. Okay, so macro instructions arguments are of four type, as I said. Okay, so the macro facility presented, okay, is capable of inserting the block of instructions, okay, in place of the macro calls. Okay, but all of the calls to any given macro calls will be replaced by identical blocks, this we know. Okay, and this macro facility lacks the flexibility. That is, there is no way for a specific macro call to modify the coding that repeats it. You understand? We can only define it in this way. Okay, there is no facility using which we can modify the coding that is appearing in the macro. Okay, hence what you need is an important extension of this facility that consists of providing the arguments or the parameters in the macro calls, okay, that we can use, and corresponding to these macro dummy arguments will appear in the macro definitions. Okay, so going back again to this particular figure. Okay, so here specifically what we said is, if we define this macro in this way, we can simply define it. We can not have the modification facility in the macro. So what we can do is, instead of declaring this here in this way, we can write this in this way. Okay, so what I did is, look at the first what you can say slide and the second slide. The first slide is this one, that is A1 data, A2 data, A3 data. Okay, so multiple times this 1 2 3 data is appearing with the A register. Okay, and we, let us say we define the macro over that. So what will happen is, we cannot modify the macro instructions. That is the what you can say drawback. Okay, this flexibility is not there. Macro facility lacks the flexibility, as I said. Okay, there is no way for this particular facility to consist, okay, of providing for the particular arguments or the parameters in the macro call. Macro call में कुछ नहीं कर सकते. So what we do is, instead we use this as ampersand arg. This is what is I am going to tell you. Okay, so what will happen is, in this case the instruction sequences are very similar but not identical. Okay, now so we, in which situation, this one. Okay, and what is data 1, data 2, data 3, that also you have to look at this. Okay, so this is start. I'll move to the next image. Okay, and then I'll come to this one, especially this one. Okay, with the facility. So you just time being, you just assume that this label, okay, ampersand lab is not there. Okay, and source code is given as, okay, macro Then what you can say, INCR ampersand ARG1 ampersand ARG2 ampersand ARG3. So these are the three parameters, like you can say arguments. Okay, these arguments may be replaced by any of the data which is being defined in the what you can say macro. So A1 ampersand ARG, A2 ampersand ARG2 and A3 ampersand ARG3 and amend. So this is the macro which we have defined. Okay. So in the start of the what you can say main program, you can see INCR data 1 is written, INCR data 2 is written and INCR data 3 is written. Okay, and there is a variable which is called as loop 1. So how this will look like is, you can see loop 1 is the label, A1 data 1, A2 data 2 and A3 data t. This is for the first kind of instruction. Okay, meaning is INCR data 1, data 2, data 3 and loop 1. The expanded code of this is this one, which is I have shown onto the right hand side. Okay, next is for this one, INCR data 3, data 2, data 1, loop 2. Okay, now look at this. Loop 2 is especially the data values, okay, in the sequence. Okay, for the arguments 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3 in the first INCR first macro what you can say call. This is macro call. Writing INCR is nothing but a macro call. So within the first macro call, the data values are data 1, 2, 3. Okay, but in the second macro call, look at this. What is this? How the values are called? Are arguments are called as INCR data 3, data 2, data 1 and loop 2. And hence, okay, this particular expanded source code will be in the same sequence जिसमें उसकी arguments provide की गई है, right? So this will be loop 2. Okay, A1 data 3, A2 data 2 and A3 data 1. Likewise, तो जैसे हैं वैसे. Okay, so this kind of facility actually is an important aspect. Okay, so such parameters which we have defined is called as macro instructions arguments or the dummy arguments. So in this particular code, the argument 1, argument 2 and argument